You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, baseball fans. That is right. This show is just for the baseball fans. No hockey, no football, no basketball, just baseball. Why? Because it's finally here. Opening day at long last. This is the 2021 MLB Preview here on the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk. And here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to go division by division, breaking down where I think each team is going to finish. I'll give you some playoff picks. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I got to start with the AL East. And if you listened to yesterday's Yankees show, you know that I picked the Yankees to win the AL East. I'm not going to spend too much time on them. I did it yesterday. I understand that they've been bitten by the injury bug. I understand that health will be an issue for them all season. And that rotation is a big question mark. There's no question about that. But I just can't bet against this team. Judge, Stanton, LeMahieu, Torres, Urshela, Cole, Chapman. No team in the American League East can measure up with the Yankees. The only team that comes close, and I think this team will be nipping at the Yankees' heels all year, is the Toronto Blue Jays. A team that got into the playoffs maybe ahead of schedule last year, but it seems like their young core is finally coalescing. Vlad Guerrero Jr., Kevin Biggio, Bo Bichette, and Rowdy Tellez. Obviously, they signed George Springer to a big contract. They signed Marcus Semien. Their rotation's a question mark. There's no question. Outside of Hyunjin Ryu, there's really no one who scares me in that rotation. Robbie Ray doesn't scare me. Tanner Roark doesn't scare me. Steven Matz doesn't scare me. I like the Blue Jays this year. They have a very talented lineup. They're very similar to the Yankees. But overall, the Yankees just have more talent. I think the Blue Jays will finish second in the AL East. In third, I have the Tampa Bay Rays. I've been down on them all off-season, and I think it's fair. You gotta realize, Blake Snell is now a Padre. Charlie Morton is now a Brave. When you have Tyler Glasnow and Ryan Yarbrough as your top two starters, you're not going to do much. The lineup really didn't get much better. They're counting on Randy Arozarena to duplicate what he did in the postseason. But that's tough. And also, Nick Anderson, their lights-out closer, is going to be out until at least the All-Star break. We know that the Rays love to shorten games. They're not going to be able to do that this year. And they don't have the pitching necessary to take them deep into games. There are people that are higher on the Rays than me. There's no question. But after giving away Blake Snell and letting Charlie Morton walk in free agency, I just don't understand it. I don't think the Rays are going to be any good. They may hover around 500, but we'll never really take them seriously as a World Series threat. That brings us to the Boston Red Sox. A team that you really can't say too much about. It's hard to get excited about them. I mean, they're going through a little bit of a rebuild right now. Obviously, it started with trading Mookie Betts. But even trading Benintendi, letting Bradley walk. The Killer Bees are gone. This is a very different Red Sox team than the team that won the World Series just 3 years ago. They won 108 games. They destroyed the Dodgers in 5 games. They've got a long road ahead of them. The only thing that they can really hope for is that guys like Devers, Bogarts, and Verdugo continue to get better. It's going to be a long season in Boston, and I couldn't be happier. The only reason why I have them not finishing last is because the Baltimore Orioles suck. There is no other word for it. They are terrible. Although, interestingly enough, they did finish 1 game up on the Red Sox last year. The Orioles finished in 4th place. The Red Sox finished in 5th. I mean, you want to talk about a rebuild. It's tough to say that what the Orioles are doing is a rebuild. I mean, a rebuild, you have some young guns that you're building around. Who are the young guns on the Orioles? Ryan Mountcastle? Austin Hayes? Tanner Scott? I mean, they're going to be lucky to win 65 games. The Yankees always destroy the Orioles. This year will be no exception. In fact, every AL East team will enjoy picking on the Orioles. The only team that'll have a tough time with them is the Red Sox. I don't think there's a big gap between the Red Sox and Orioles. The Red Sox may finish a few games up on the Orioles, but not by much. Moving on now to the AL Central. And this is a team that I've been high on for a while. I think their time is now. I think they're going to be a really tough team to beat. You're going to see their great collection of young guns come together. They've got the perfect manager, the Chicago White Sox. You know, the Eloy Jimenez injury doesn't scare me a lot. I mean, yeah, obviously it'll hurt the White Sox. There's no question. But they've got another young gun ready to take his place in Andrew Vaughn. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what Vaughn does, because Vaughn hasn't played a game in AA or AAA. But he did a good job in spring training. He really earned his way onto the team. You've got Luis Robert, Nick Madrigal, Yon Moncada, Tim Anderson. The pitching staff is great. Lucas Giolito, Dallas Keuchel, Dylan Cease, Lance Lynn, Carlos Rodon, Liam Hendricks is the closer, Aaron Bummer, Evan Marshall, Garrett Crochet. The White Sox have a really good assemblage of talent. If you're looking for a dark horse team to win the pennant, there are worse picks than the Chicago White Sox. Then you have the Minnesota Twins, a team that always hangs around, never really does much. But look, they make the playoffs, they make their fans happy. They have talent on the roster. I mean, it's hard to look at any of their projected starters and say that guy doesn't have talent. The Twins have a talented team from the top down. And in a weak AL Central, that's going to really help them. It's tough for me to key in on any specific players because the Twins are just very well balanced. They're just a talented team. Not the most talented team in the league. Probably not even the most talented team in the division. But compared to the other three teams in the AL Central, they're the 27 Yankees. The best of the worst is the Cleveland Indians. I understand that they traded Lindor and Carrasco, but they still have a decent roster. You gotta think Jose Ramirez is gonna keep up his hot hitting. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Who's the real Jose Ramirez? Is it the guy who was dreadful in the first half of the 19th season? Or was it the guy who turned it on in the second half and dominated in the 60-game joke? I do think he'll keep up his hot play. I'll say that. I like Andres Gimenez a lot. I actually have him on my fantasy team. Franmil Reyes has a lot of talent. They still have Shane Bieber. They still have Zach Plesac, Tristan McKenzie, James Karinchak. The Indians are fine. They'll hover around that 77, 78 win mark all year. I don't see them making a lot of noise. I think their cost-cutting measures will continue. It's tough to get really excited about the Indians. Now, I gotta say, it was tough for me to decide who would finish in fourth place in the Central. Because neither the Royals or Tigers are really good. Ultimately, though, I'll say that the Royals are going to finish in fourth. Their lineup really isn't that bad. Salvador Perez is one of the best catchers in the game. Incredibly underrated. Whit Merrifield can play anywhere on the diamond. Very valuable player. I like him a lot. They traded for Andrew Benintendi. He'll help them a lot. They still have Greg Holland. They still have Josh Stormont. The thing is, though, that rotation is dreadful. Brad Keller, Mike Minor, Brady Singer, Danny Duffy, and Jacob Junis. I mean, come on. That's a joke. Alright, look, I shouldn't knock Keller. Keller's a solid pitcher. But if he's your ace, you're in trouble. Mike Minor's past his prime. Brady Singer seems like he's going to be a solid pitcher, but God only knows what you're going to get from him. Danny Duffy's overrated. Jacob Junis stinks. The Royals are going to need to win a lot of 10-9 games. And that's just not going to happen. That brings us to the Detroit Tigers. The only exciting thing about the Tigers is Miguel Cabrera. He has 487 home runs. Will he get to 500? He has 2,866 hits. Will he get to 3,000? That's like the only reason to watch Tigers games. Yeah, they traded for Nomar Mazara. Okay. He's a good player. But no one's going to be mistaking him for Al Kaline anytime soon. Matt Boyd is one of the most overrated players in baseball. You keep hearing that all these teams are interested in Matt Boyd. And you keep hearing the names that are being thrown out to get him. They're top prospects. Kids, if you want to be coveted in Major League Baseball, be a lefty. Throw with your left hand. Do a Marv Marinovich. Have your arm tied behind your back so you're forced to use your left arm. The Tigers are going to be a disaster. That brings us to the AL West. And, look, I hate this team. I think what they did to the game is disgraceful. I think it's a joke. It's a black mark that will never be removed. But I have to say that they're going to win the AL West. You think I'm talking about the Houston Astros, don't you? No. I'm talking about the Oakland Athletics. I really hate the Athletics. They started sabermetrics. I hate sabermetrics. I mean, the thing that I love with the Athletics is that bullpen. I have no idea what I'm going to get from that lineup. I have no idea what I'm going to get from that rotation. There are a lot of question marks there. But the Athletics bullpen may be the best bullpen in baseball. You've got Trevor Rosenthal as the closer, Jake Diekman and Sergio Romo as your setup guys. And then you've got Lou Trevino, J.B. Wendelken, Yusmeiro Petit, Adam Kolarek, and Birch Smith coming out of that bullpen. That's as lights out as it gets. And look, baseball is changing. It's changing to a game where the managers can't wait to get into their bullpen. The Athletics are set up perfectly for that. I mean, at the end of the day, you've still got to score consistently if you want to win. That Athletics lineup is dreadful. But that bullpen is so blasted good, and no one else in the AL West scares me. So I'm going to say that the Athletics repeat as AL West champs. Now we'll get to the Houston Astros. Realize, they're without Verlander. They're without Valdez. George Springer is now a Blue Jay. The Astros do not scare me. I mean, you gotta realize, their best hitter last year was Springer. How much do you trust Miles Straw? I mean, come on, he's nothing compared to Springer. He's fast, but that's about it. Altuve will bounce back, Bregman will bounce back, Correa will be fine. I have no issue with those guys. But the absences of Springer and Verlander scare me. Would it stun me if the Astros won the AL West? No, because I don't think the Athletics are great. But I don't think the Astros are either. In third, I'm going to go with the Angels. They really improved themselves this offseason. Getting Iglesias to replace Andrelton Simmons made a ton of sense. Their bullpen is greatly improved. Raisel Iglesias, Alex Claudio, Steve Cishek, Tony Watson. Obviously, they have Mike Trout, the best player in the game. They have David Fletcher, really underrated player. They have Anthony Rendon, really good player. A lot of people are overlooking the Angels. Let me tell you, the AL West is really a 3-team race. I could very easily see the Angels winning it. And it would give Trout the opportunity to get some playoff redemption. Here's a guy who, in his whole postseason career, only has one hit to his name. It was a home run in Game 3 of the 14 ALDS. The Royals wound up winning that game 8-3. I understand that there are a lot of great baseball players to have never won a World Series. Barry Bonds, Ted Williams, and Harmon Killebrew, just to name a few. But those guys at least made a World Series. Those guys at least have iconic moments. Does Trout have an iconic moment? I know Trout has 3 MVPs, but is there a season that measures up to Williams' 406 season? To Bonds' 73 home run season? To Killebrew's MVP season, where he nearly won the Triple Crown? I'll say this, if Trout continues on this trajectory, we're going to have a very tough time ranking him in terms of best careers in baseball history. In dominance, he's up there with the greats of the game. In terms of best careers, there are a lot of guys who I would put ahead of Mike Trout. Guys who'd surprise you. In fourth place, I have the Seattle Mariners. A team that surprised a lot of people last year. They were in the playoff hunt basically all year. They only finished 2 games behind the Astros. I mean, that's a team that arrived ahead of schedule. But in a 162-game season, I'm just not sure how much I trust them. I mean, I like some of the guys on their team. I like J.P. Crawford. I like Kyle Seager. I like Taylor Trammell. Marco Gonzalez I wanted with the Yankees. Justice Sheffield is on my fantasy team. Yusei Kikuchi, Justin Dunn, Rafael Montero, James Paxton going back to the Mariners will be good. The Mariners won't be dreadful. I just don't think they'll be all that good. Like, the AL West is weird. There are no dreadful teams. There's just no great team. So because of that, there's going to be a dogfight all throughout the season. And it's one that I think the Texas Rangers are going to lose. I mean, they have a guy in Joey Gallo with some pop. Chris Davis will be really good for him. Obviously, he knows the division. You know what, now that I'm thinking about it more, it won't be that close between the Mariners and Rangers. No, the Mariners won't finish in last by a comfortable margin. Yeah, the Rangers are that much worse than them. Moving on now to the NL East. And I gotta go with the Atlanta Braves. It's just impossible to pick against them. They're gonna be one of those teams that we pick every year to win their division until they don't. And then we're not going to pick them again for another 5 years. But the Braves are showing no signs of slowing down. From the top down, that lineup is just stacked. The rotation is stacked. The lack of a shutdown closer scares me. Bringing back Mark Melancon would have made a lot of sense for him. But I think they'll be fine. It's not worth going through anyone individually because they're so blasted talented. That brings us to the New York Mets. You see that, Mets fans? I have you guys finishing second in the NL East. After finishing tied for last year, and not finishing in second place since 2016, I don't think you can ask for much more than that. Is the division impossible for you to take? No. I mean, you have a great lineup. But your pitching is already a little shaky. No Carrasco to start off the year. Obviously no Syndergaard. No Lugo to start off the year. I really think the Mets are going to be really good this year. I just don't think they're going to be as good as the Braves. Since I'm on the topic of the Mets, I have to talk about the Lindor extension. It went down to the wire. But Steve Cohen and Sandy Alderson were able to lock Lindor up for 10 years for a grand total of $341 million in terms of total value. That is the third richest contract in baseball history, behind Mike Trout and Mookie Betts. In terms of AAV, that is the fifth highest contract in baseball history, behind Garrett Cole, Trout, Anthony Rendon, and Steven Strasburg. And you know what? I can't begrudge it for a second. This is a fantastic move by the Mets. All the talk throughout the season, regardless of how great the Mets were doing and how great Lindor was, would have been, this is all well and good, but Lindor is still a pending free agent. none of this is going to matter in a year when Lindor signs elsewhere. I promise you that's what you would have heard, because Mets fans are naturally jaded. I'm not begrudging them for that, that's just fact. They've been conditioned that way through years of terrible ownership by the Wilpons. Now you don't have to worry about that. You have one of the best players in baseball locked up throughout his prime. There was a lot of pressure on Alderson and Cohen here. Now, Cohen didn't help matters by tweeting about the discussions constantly, which really isn't a good look, because if this didn't work, if Lindor said, you know what, I'm going to hold out for 12 years, or I want to get more than Mookie Betts, Cohen looks like the biggest jerk in the world. Just trolling Mets fans like that, after they were trolled by Trevor Bauer. So Cohen was playing with fire. But you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Lindor may be the best Met since David Wright. I'll say that right now. In terms of how dominant he's going to be, you're going to think of Wright. You're going to think of Jose Reyes. You're going to think of Bud Harrelson. When it's all said and done, Lindor could be better than all of them. I promise you, the drop-off in his production is a direct result of the 60-game joke. He will go back to hitting .280. He will go back to hitting 30 home runs. He will go back to getting 80 RBIs, 20 steals, and fantastic defense. He just will. And this is coming from someone that hates the Mets. I was rooting for Lindor to leave you guys high and dry. You give up Rosario, Jimenez, and the two other prospects for just 1 year. That would have made me happy. Now I've got to live with this guy being in New York on the other side of the RFK bridge for 10 years. Steve Cohen said that he wanted to spend money. And he wanted to spend money on a superstar. It's not enough to trade for one. Anyone can do that. What's really impressive is signing him long term. You've got to have the financial ability to do it. You've got to have the sales ability to do it. And maybe most importantly, you've got to have the desire to do it. There are a lot of owners out there that really don't care if they win or lose. All they want is to make money. Championships are irrelevant. It's just the bottom line that they care about. Cohen isn't like that. For the first time in decades, the New York Mets have an owner that legitimately cares about them, that is willing to do whatever it takes to win. The Yankees are now going to have stiff competition for the back page in this town. And that matters. Does it matter as much as winning? No. But the Yankees getting the lion's share of the press coverage in this town matters. The Yankees have competition. The New York Mets are a legitimate threat to the Yankees as being the kings of New York baseball. The Bombers may have to share the throne. You know, it's funny. I texted my buddy Kevin after the Lindor trade. And he called me a few hours later and said, yeah, I'm happy about the trade. But at the end of the day, he's still got to sign an extension here. I understood the skepticism. Like I said, Mets fans have been conditioned to be jaded through years of collapses, mismanagement, terrible ownership. Basically, anything that a franchise could do wrong, the Mets have done wrong. Well, Kevin and all the other Mets fans out there that were holding out on buying a Lindor jersey or t-shirt, whatever, buy it now. Wear it with pride. Francisco Lindor is going to do fantastic things in Queens. Give the Mets credit for sticking with this. Give Lindor credit for being willing to negotiate with the Mets. He could have very easily said, I want to hit free agency. I don't care what you offer me. I want to hit free agency. Let me see what I'm worth on the open market. Instead, he made a big commitment to the team, despite being a member of it for less than 3 months. When has that ever happened to the Mets? It happened with Mookie Betts and the Dodgers, but when has that ever happened with the Mets? The guy signs a long-term extension with you despite never playing a game in your jersey. Things are changing in Flushing. The Mets are competent. The Mets are going to be really good for a long time. Oh, I feel a little bit of vomit in the back of my throat. It kills me to say it, but it's the truth. This is an absolutely fantastic move by the Mets. Alright, so back to the season preview. In third, and a pretty distant third at that. I'm not saying this team is going to be bad or anything. I just don't think they're going to be in the same class as the Mets. Is the Washington Nationals. The last legitimate World Series winner. Yes, the Dodgers World Series does have an asterisk on it. They've got Strasburg back. They brought in John Lester. They traded for Josh Bell. They brought in Kyle Schwarber. They brought in Brad Hand. And I'm not even counting their holdovers. Guys like Trey Turner, Juan Soto, Max Scherzer, and Patrick Corbin. I don't care that Corbin had a bad year last year. 60 games. Health is an issue, there's no question, but the Nationals will win 85 games this year. That brings us to the Philadelphia Phillies, another team that I don't think is going to be bad. The thing that I'm not crazy about with the Phillies is that they're really just running it back. You know, they didn't make any big moves to get better. And they needed to because they were 4 games under 500 last year. I mean, a lot of teams in the NL East got better. The Phillies didn't. They have really good players. Obviously, Bryce Harper. They brought back Real Muto. They brought back Gregorius. Andrew McCutchen's there. Rhys Hoskins. Obviously, they have Girardi, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, and Zach Eflin. But again, every team in that division got better. I can't say that the Phillies did. That brings us to the Miami Marlins. It was a fun ride for the Marlins, navigating their COVID outbreak to end up playing a full 60-game schedule. They ended up making the playoffs. They ended up beating the Cubs in the wild card round. But then they got swept by the Braves. But still, they made the playoffs. And won a round. Don Mattingly, well-deserved Manager of the Year. The thing is, though, I just think they're going to come crashing back to reality. Until I see their young guns coalesce, I can't say they're going to do anything special. But Marlins fans should feel optimistic about the future. I do think they're pointed in the right direction. It's not going to show this year, but down the line, they'll be okay. That brings us to the NL Central. And I gotta go with the Cardinals. The Nolan Arenado trade just makes them so much better. And they gave up nothing to get him. You get to move Matt Carpenter into a utility role, which is where he belongs at this stage in his career. You still have Yadier Molina, you have Paul Goldschmidt. The starting rotation scares me. It's not as good as it once was. But it won't be bad. Jack Flaherty will have a bounce-back year. I love the Cardinals' bullpen. The Cardinals aren't going to be world beaters or anything. They'll win like 87, 88 games. But that will be enough to win the division. Because the NL Central really isn't that good. I'm probably going to surprise some people by saying that this team is going to finish in second. But realize, they did win the division last year. And you got to think that the guys they have, the really talented players, guys like Wilson Contreras, Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez, and Chris Bryant are going to bounce back. That, of course, is the Chicago Cubs. I do like their outfield. I will say that. Bringing in Jock Peterson made sense. I understand that he didn't have a good year last year, but again, bounce back candidate. Ian Happ had a good year. Jason Hayward had a good year. They still have Kyle Hendricks. They brought in Zach Davies. They brought back Jake Arrieta. They have Craig Kimbrell as the closer, who is the best closer of the 2010s. I think the Cubs will be fine. They won't be great or anything. They'll hover around like 82 wins, but they won't embarrass themselves. That brings me to the Milwaukee Brewers, another team with a lot of bounce-back candidates. Christian Yelich had a garbage year. Lorenzo Cain only played in 5 games. Keston Hiura had a bad year. It's very possible that the Brewers could overtake the Cubs. I just don't think they have as much talent on their roster as the Cubs do. I mean, I like Brandon Woodruff. I like Corbin Burns. I love Josh Hader. I like Devin Williams. I like Brent Suter. The Brewers will be tough. But ultimately, I just think once you get deeper into the rosters, it cuts in the Cubs' favor. The wild card will be that if the Cubs start out slow, or it's evident that they're not good enough to do anything special in the playoffs, they may go on a fire sale. The Brewers won't. In fourth place, I gotta go with the Cincinnati Reds. Obviously, losing Bauer is a killer blow for them. But they still have talent on that roster. Joey Votto, Eugenio Suarez, Jesse Winker, Nick Castellanos. And as funny as it sounds, their rotation is still pretty good. Luis Castillo, Sonny Gray, and Tyler Mahle. They've got a good closer in Amir Garrett, a good setup guy in Lucas Sims. I don't think the Reds will embarrass themselves out there, but they're not going to make much noise. They'll hover around the 75 win range. And obviously that means that the Pirates are in last place. They're going with a youth movement. We all know this. They traded Josh Bell. They traded Jameson Taillon. They traded Joe Musgrove. It's going to be tough sledding in Pittsburgh for a long time. The one thing I'll say is, you do have some young guns that it's easy to get behind. Ke'Bryan Hayes is an excellent player. He's going to be a superstar in this league. Mark my words. Mitch Keller has good stuff. At least you've got a couple players that you can get behind. Look at it this way. It'll give you a reason to turn on the TV, to watch a Keller start or watch Hayes hit. There are some teams that don't have that. That brings us to the NL West. A division that probably has the two best teams in baseball in it. The true World Series this year will be the Dodgers-Padres series. I don't know when they'll match up. The NLDS, the NLCS, one of the two, obviously. But that's the real World Series. Those two teams, the Dodgers and Padres, in that order, are just leaps and bounds better than everyone else. The Dodgers won the World Series and added the defending NL Cy Young winner. They are absolutely loaded. The Padres made a concerted effort to get better this offseason. And as we all know, they did. Trading for Blake Snell, trading for Yu Darvish, trading for Joe Musgrove, bringing in Mark Melancon, bringing in Ha-Sung Kim. The ultimate travesty would be if the Dodgers and Padres met in the NLDS. Major League Baseball doesn't want that. What they really should do is amend the rules quickly to go back to the old days of the wild card winner can't face the team that won their division in the NLDS. So let's say the Padres win the wild card game. If the Dodgers finish with the best record in the National League, which they probably will, make it so the Padres have to go up against the division winner with the second best record, like the Braves. Let the Dodgers face the Cardinals. At the end of the day, we all want to see a Dodgers-Padres NLCS. An NLDS really doesn't mean anything. Because you know that whoever wins the NLDS is going up against the third best team in the National League. That's not the way it should work. You go up against the third best team in the NLDS, and then the second best team in the NLCS. It's going to be very tough for Major League Baseball to get around that. In third place in the NL West, I'll go with the Arizona Diamondbacks. They had some guys have some really good years for them. Christian Walker, Ketel Marte, Nick Ahmed, and David Peralta. They have a decent lineup. The thing is, though, that pitching is god-awful. I mean, Bumgarner's first year with the Diamondbacks was dreadful. You gotta think he's gonna turn it around. But how confident can you really be in that? Zach Gallen's good, but no one's going to be mistaking him for Randy Johnson anytime soon. Truthfully, the Diamondbacks will be lucky to reach 500. They'll be lucky to get 75 wins. It's kind of funny. You've got the two best teams in baseball in the NL West and three of the worst teams in baseball in the NL West. Kind of interesting how it shakes out. The reality is the Giants just aren't world beaters. They're very similar to the Diamondbacks. Really good offense. Guys like Brandon Belt, Donovan Solano, Alex Dickerson, Mike Yastrzemski, Mauricio Dubon, Brandon Crawford. They have a very, very good lineup. It's just that pitching is dreadful. Once you get past Kevin Gausman, it falls off a cliff. It comes down to this. Who do you think has the better pitching? The Giants or the Diamondbacks? I'll go with the Diamondbacks. Certainly the Bumgarner factor helps that. But the Diamondbacks bullpen is better than the Giants bullpen. It wouldn't stun me if the Giants and Diamondbacks traded places. Just like it wouldn't surprise me if the Dodgers and Padres traded places. It's just that the Diamondbacks and Giants will be playing for a lot lower stakes than the Dodgers and Padres. And then in last place, you have the Colorado Rockies. They're going to trade Trevor Story at some point. I don't care what they say. There's no way that Story commits to that team long term. After seeing what happened to Arenado, how do you do it? Hell, they could even trade Charlie Blackmon. You think he's going to exercise his player option for 2022? I don't. That Rockies team from the top down is just a terrible organization. I feel sorry for Bud Black. He doesn't deserve this sorry team. The Rockies are going to be lucky to get 60 wins. That team needs a major shakeup very, very quickly. So I'll rapid fire through the playoffs really fast. My two wildcard teams in the AL are the Blue Jays and Twins. I'll say the Blue Jays beat the Twins. In the National League, I have the Padres and Mets. See that? I even have the Mets making the playoffs. I just don't think you're going to beat the Padres. I'll say that the Yankees beat the Blue Jays in the ALDS. The White Sox beat the Athletics. The Dodgers beat the Padres, and the Braves beat the Cardinals. The Yankees beat the White Sox in the ALCS. The Dodgers beat the Braves in the NLCS. So in an old school Yankees-Dodgers World Series, a World Series that we haven't had since 1981, we'll see a similar result to the one that happened 30 years ago. As much as it kills me to say it, and Lord knows it does, I do believe that the Dodgers will beat the Yankees in the World Series. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that we live by the golden rule. Those who have the gold make the rules.